For our next project, we're going to work on a book cover design. And ideally, we would want to use Photoshop, but if you have access to Illustrator or if you have access to Canva or Spark, whatever alternative you use is fine for this one. I know some of you have been working with your iPads, totally fine also. So you can use Procreate, you can use, Adobe Fresco, Adobe Draw, any manner with which you are able to get a product, that's what we're going to go with. All right, so for our book cover, it is going to be a 12 by 9. So I'm going to demo this in Photoshop. So just convert it to however you wish, wherever it is you're working program-wise. If you're in Spark or Canva, and if you can't change the size, just make it letter sized, but turn it to landscape and then just adjust accordingly. Like the proportions are gonna be a little off, but the main gist will be there. All right, so I have mine set to inches. It is 12 for the width because we're gonna be working with it like if you take a book and you lay it flat so you can see the back cover, the front cover, and the spine. So it's gonna be a landscape that is 12 by 9. Resolution's 300. You can leave it at that because we're going to use print. If you want, you would probably also be in the print one. I have it in the recents because I make a lot of book covers, so I also was testing it. I leave it RGB until the very last step where you're going to convert it to CMYK. You can have a white background, black background, transparent if you want it for whatever reason. You probably will want a container of some sort. Then go ahead and hit create. All right, so this is going to be the trade 6x9, which is essentially what this is. So the 6x9s are like, if you go to Target or where have you, and you see the sort of little bit larger romancy size, or the fiction that's just a little bit bigger than like a normal paperback, that's the size we're going to be working with for this. We are going to need a small spine. So I have my rulers out. If you don't, it's Command R. Or you can go under View, Rulers. There it is, Command R. If you're on a PC, it's going to be Control R, same thing. So since I'm demoing on a Mac, I'll probably be saying Command. So for those of you on a PC, just know Command means Control. I'm not going to say that probably every time. We need to bring a guide. Now you click. So we're going to bring guide to the 6 inch. So I want to know where my midpoint is. So for this, you click on the gray of your ruler. You're not on the side, you're not on the tools, you're on the actual ruler. You click and hold, and when you drag, you're gonna see that line, and you drag it to the 6 and let go. So if this was our piece of paper, this is the perfect midpoint, but we need like anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of a spine, depending on whatever your preference is. So let's say I want a 1/2 inch spine, so I just you have 2 options. You can make a rectangle that is 0.5 inches. Doesn't matter. Let's just do it square, 0.5 inches. And then you will move that with your move tool and find the midpoint on it, which is around there. So this is sort of eyeballing it. You can arrow it. That works. You can tell it's off just by that little. And then you would drag another guide and another guide side by side. Well, let's just do it so you can see it. So you pull a guide to the line, and you pull a guide to the line, and then you know that's your midfold, and then this is your entire spine. You can also, if you want to be super precise, I'm going to go back into my history. All right, I'm going to go back to new guide. Half of a half is 1/4, so I'm going to go ahead and make 0.25 inch by 0.25 inch to see how, it's going to convert it for you. So this is saying right now this is perfectly 1/2 of a half. So if I put my guide here, you can see how it snaps. Bring it out from the ruler, snap it to the other side, bring it out to the ruler, and then hit delete. You have a perfectly centered 1/2 inch spine, or however big you want to go with that. I do not have a requirement for spine width, so you can do anything you want. So if you want a little bit larger one, 1/2 inch is pretty good. If you want a little bit smaller, it will be 1/4 of an inch. So pick accordingly and then go from there. So if you're working in Photoshop, I know that I have that there's a 1/4 inch bleed. If you're in Photoshop, we're just ignoring that for now. So you can just work with the 6x12. If you are in Illustrator, and I have a lot of stuff open there, let me go. So 6x9. Nope, 6x12. Sorry, we're doubling it. 12. Oh my goodness, sorry, 12x9. Go ahead and under the more settings, we want that 1/4 inch bleed. So 0.25, and mine's linked, so it's going to go all around it. And then you'll design your cover. Let's say there's a background or a texture of some sort. The bleed is going to be that external safety. So you'll actually put the colors and textures in the background, but all your actual imagery or your type stays on the artboard. If you're in Photoshop for this one, I'm going to be waving that one, so don't worry about that. So work accordingly. For this project, I have a raven. I'm just going to open this in my Finder, and I'm going to click and drag it into Photoshop. So this version of the raven, you can erase parts of it. You can just use the eyeball or the head. You can just take and zoom in on it. You don't have to use the whole raven, but the raven in some manner needs to be incorporated. I'm going to Command A to select all. I'm going to Command C to copy, and then I'm going to go into my document and I'm going to paste it with Command V. So this can be, I've seen some people make this the main emphasis point. I've seen someone just, use the beak or use the eye or use, a texture in the feather, maybe just this part, and blow it up really big. It's going to depend on your design. Some have put them in trees and negated the branch. I'm very, very flexible with this part. So for now, I'm just going to paint bucket, and that's under the gradient tool, a weird color so we can sort of see what's happening with the raven. So right now you can see the raven. So I'm going to go to my magic wand, which I already have it to default, and I sort of want to see. Okay, I'm going to make it contiguous because I just want to get rid of the background. So this is why I said I always like to find images that are plain so that when I hit delete, I can clean it up pretty easily. So I'm just selecting and deleting. I actually don't mind the feathers being white because you can have a little bit of fun with that. But if you want it to be able to see the background, you're going to want to do a selection of the background. I'll do this again. That way you don't have to rewind. All right, I took it, turned on contiguous at the top when I'm under my magic wand. I'm clicking on the background and I'm hitting the delete key on my keyboard, and then I saw it missed this part, so I'm going to go ahead and click that also. Command D to deselect, so deselect. So Command D will get rid of that selection, and then you can go ahead and get going. I am 100% going to recommend that you do not use the system default typefaces. They are default for a reason. Everyone uses them. They're very blah. I'd say probably the only one you could really get away with on a Mac is Helvetica, because that's the actual only neutral that's out there. Maybe Gill Sans. There's a couple that are classics. Garamond. Garamond's pretty classic. Palatino's classic. Avoid 100%, and I will deduct points if I see Papyrus or Comic Sans. I'm actually not joking on that. I know people think I am. I keep seeing it come up, and it is just such a no-no in design. So if you want to be taken seriously in design, do not use Comic Sans. Do not use Papyrus. So go to our friend Font Squirrel and check out some different typefaces. Oh, and also now that you are here in our land of Adobe from home, you're going to have access to your type, so you can actually download new typefaces from the Type Kit. I will do a separate video on that because that's a little bit different. All right, so for this one, if you're in Photoshop, do not worry about the bleed. Just do your 12x9. If you're an Illustrator, add the bleed. You can work back and forth between the two. So let's say we cleared our image here. So I just clicked on the background. I'm going to select the inverse. I'm going to copy it. And then let's just take it into here, into Illustrator. And when I paste it, the bird actually comes into Illustrator. Vice versa. Let's say for whatever reason I made these really weird color blocks and I think they're awesome. And I'm just going to pick 3 random colors to go with them. This has nothing to do with books, but maybe it'll come into play. I selected them by click dragging over them. I'm going to copy them, and you guessed it, it's going to go into Photoshop. So you can bounce back and forth between the two. Depends on your work style. So if you want to do that, this is the time to start experimenting with that. Our final project, you will be bouncing between the two. So you can get started now. And then you can see it has these selections. Just hit your return or your enter key and it will work fine. And we can rearrange it. And then maybe we'll go back to our bird and make some sort of crazy, I use multiply and overlay a lot. So work between the two, see what happens. If you only have Photoshop, work with Photoshop. If you only have Illustrator, use Illustrator. If you have access to both and you want to explore and play around a little bit, bounce between the two and see what happens. If you don't have any of those, you guessed it, see what Canva and see what Spark does. I have seen some amazing pieces, like I said, on those. So don't rule those out. Here's the trick of graphic design, everyone. Designers have to get the job done regardless. So one job I had, we only had Publisher. Publisher's not a great program, but I got stuff to look really good in Publisher. So if you have Publisher, use Publisher. If you have Word, use Word. Find a way to get this to work for you. Design is about flexibility. Design is about figuring out a solution to the problem, and not just a design problem. It can be any problem, like now you're working from home. How do I get this stuff to work? What would do the job? Play around with it. Have fun and experiment. The whole goal is to experiment and have fun. The product that we make is just a bonus. So, rule number 1 of design, we get the job done regardless. So, use whichever program. I am alleviating the PDF JPEG rule. So, if you can get it to be a PDF, awesome. Upload it as that. If you can only do JPEGs, that's fine also. So JPEG or PDF, and go ahead and put it in Blackboard. If for some reason Blackboard isn't working, I do have this as a backup on my website, and that link is in the announcements. So, happy creating. I can't wait to see what you do. And remember to relax, have fun, and enjoy, and experiment. This is the perfect time to be creating. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.